Today I want to talk about a basic stock issue debate called topicality. Now, topicality is about the relationship of the debate resolution, which next year will be the U.S. federal government should substantially increase its transportation infrastructure investment in the United States. All right, that's the resolution, to the specific plan that the affirmative team is going to be defending. So when I say plan, I mean a specific instance in which the U.S. increases its transportation infrastructure. That can be done in a lot of ways. You guys can probably think of a few. Monetary incentives, giving money to increase transportation infrastructure, or actual construction, of new infrastructure venues. But we'll get to all that later. The point is that the word topicality, as you can probably tell from the way it's spelled, is derived or comes from the word topical, which if you guys can look up in your dictionary, you'll see that the definition of the word topical is of or pertaining to. So a good synonym for that is relevance. And as I'm walking you guys through the argument of topicality, if you guys get lost, just remember that in one sentence, topicality tries to answer the question how relevant the affirmative's case is to the actual resolution it's supposed to be defending. Now, okay, so if you tell a spectator, just some random guy off the street to come see a debate, they're going to generally want to know two main things before anything else. The first thing that they're going to want to know is who's debating, which in our instance can be answered, and in general can be answered pretty easily. It's going to be you guys arguing against a different team from another school at a tournament. The second thing they're going to want to know is what you guys are going to be debating about. And that's where topicality comes into play. When the negative makes a topicality argument, they're arguing that the affirmative case isn't defending the resolution due to an exact definition of a word in the resolution. So let me give you guys an example. A word that's common in every resolution for the past 15, 20 years has been the word substantially. Almost every resolution has started out, the U.S. federal government should substantially blah, 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 blah. Now that word substantially can mean a ton of different things. You guys can see how some people may define substantially as a simple majority. By that I mean just more than half. There's definitely an argument that says that more than half of something is enough to be substantial. A stricter interpretation might be substantial has to be 3/4. It has to have whatever it is has to have 3/4 support to be considered substantial enough. The negative usually argues that topicality, defining these words are important because debates are supposed to be educational. You need to define the topic appropriately so that the negative can develop arguments against affirmatives and be prepared to debate. You guys can see if you guys don't know or it's ambiguous what the definition of a certain word is, then it's difficult to prepare. If I think the word space refers to the gap between two things, and you think the word space means outer space, though whatever debate is going to ultimately result is going to be totally different just because those definitions are so strikingly different, even though it's the same word, space. So let me try to give you guys a more relevant example. Let's say we morph this class into a U.S. history class for a second, and I tell you guys that tomorrow morning I want an essay on my desk about the American Revolution. And tomorrow morning comes around, and everyone returns to me a paper writing about World War II. No mention about the American Revolution. In addition to thinking that you guys had lost your mind, I'd be forced to give you guys Fs because what you wrote about was not at all what I asked you to write about. World War II wasn't topical to the American Revolution, which is what I wanted you to write about. But it's also important to see that that doesn't necessarily mean that you couldn't have gotten away with writing about World War II by being creative. You could have started out your essay by saying the American Revolution and World War II have a ton of things in common, and you can learn a lot of things about the American Revolution by learning about World War II. if you phrase your essay that way, then I can make the connection in my head and say, okay, maybe the American Revolution and World War II have a lot of similarities, so I can see how World War II might be topical when I asked you guys to write an essay about the American Revolution.